In this Grasshopper tutorial, I want to show you how you can use the arc tool to produce a parametric surface, something like this, which we can change these parameters. As you can see, we can make this a more rotating curve like this one, increase the height, and change this one. As you can see, this will just make this bigger or smaller, and change the start, and also change the minimum and the maximum of the height, which we can simply also reverse to produce something like this. And at the end, what we are going to do is to connect them with this surface, which you can see here. We're going to connect them to produce the final result, which is a surface like this one. So basically, with this tutorial will show you how to use the arc tool to produce a surface like this. And a quick announcement before we start the tutorial is that we also added this tutorial to the Grasshopper course for those who want to know about it, which you can also change the height, as you can see here, change the resolution of this bridging thing, and also make this bridge straight, as you can see here, and change the location of the points, as we can change the location, or just simply make that, as you can see here, and change the locations, which will produce different results. So this is also added to the Grasshopper course. Okay, back to our tutorial. We're going to start from scratch, and let's just delete the surface. And what I want to do is to produce the arcs by giving it a series. I'm going to explain that. So you can always search by ARC and find this arc here, or just go to the curve primitive and find the arc, which also, when you see this ellipse or circle like this, and also this rectangle thing, this orange thing means that it's in a plane. So if you see the orange thing, remember that the command means and is confined by a plane and defined by a plane. So let's just put this arc here and put the bifocals plugin so you can see this. And I want to show you first what this arc does, so we can make that parametric. The first thing is the plane, which is not really important, and that's the XY plane. We can just turn that off. The next thing is a radius. So if I give this a number, you can see that I can change the radius of this arc simply. The angle, as you can see here, is in radians. Remember, the default angle in Grasshopper is in radians. But you can't right click here and choose degrees because it's not in the arc tool. So what can we do? First of all, if you see this, this is a domain which says draw the arc from 0 to pi, right? So this is going to be an arc from 0 to pi. And input is the angle, and you know that the default is radians, and if you just put the cursor here, you can see that it's radians. And you can't right click and choose the degrees. So what can we do here is to simply use the radians tool, which will simply convert the degrees to radians, and we're going to use it here. Okay, first of all, you can see that the input is a domain, and that means from 0 to pi, which is simply here from 0 to pi, which is 180 degrees, pi divided by 2, which is 90 degrees. Okay, just to know about this. So about defining the angle in degrees, what I want to do is to just say I want to start from maybe from 0 to 360 degrees with 2 decimals. Okay, we have 2 sections, which is the start of this and the end of the arc. So say we want to go from 0 to 137. And now we have converted this to radians, and then we can go to the math section here and use this construct domain to make a domain. So remember, you can always just put this and make the arc controllable. As you can see, you can change the start and change the end. Here we go. And you can see that we can control that. Okay, so this is one of the ways you can control the arc, and we can simply maybe just give this a pipe so you can see the results and control that pipe if you want. Okay, the thing we just worked on it, which was this one, what we have changed here is to, let's just zoom in and look at this. We have defined an angle here, so let's just talk about this. Okay, I'm going to turn this off take a copy of this so you can also have this one if you want to use it, and go to a new definition. So what we want to do is to define an arc and increase two things: one, radius, and second, angle. Okay, just assume that we have, let me just turn this off. We have this arc, okay, with a simple radius. I'm going to draw this with blue. Then we have a bigger arc, which will increase the radius, and then we'll also have a bigger radius, right? And the angle is going to start from here to there. Okay, again, we're going to increase the radius, so this is going to be increased here, and again up to the end. So if we just increase the radius, you can see that we can make a spiral and increase the radius. Okay, so if I simply go here and give this a series, we have talked about the series, so you can also watch the series. I will put it up here. So if we just give this a start from 0, okay, 0 will just produce 0 radius, so we need a default radius. Let's just give this number. This is the first starting radius. Then we will increase each radius by this number, and then we maybe need 25 arcs. So if I give this to the radius, you can see that we have produced 25 or more or less arcs. We can just change the increasing radius, and then also starting radius, which is this one. You can see that I'm changing this, and then each of them are going to increase by this number, which is actually the series. You can see that it's going to start from this and increase it. So again, you can see the series tutorial if you don't know about it. Then what we want to do is also to control the angle. So what we have here is not a number increasing. As you can see here, we have a radius which is increasing, but this one is a domain, so we have to control that. Okay, I'm going to again give this a series. Maybe we want to start this arc from 0 to 10, right? So let's just give this from 0, and then each of those arcs are going to be increased by this number, and obviously this is going to be the same count here. Okay, so you can see that these are the numbers, and what we have to make this into a domain, so I'm typing this here too so you can understand this. We need to convert these numbers to domains, so it's going to be something like this: 0 to 12.5, and then it's going to be 12.5 to 25. So this will just produce one arc, this one another arc, 12 to 25, then this one, and we are just using these numbers to make those arcs just start from each other. The previous arc will start the next arc. Okay, so what we can do is to just search for CONS, or consecutive domains, which you can also find in the math section, domain, and here we have this consecutive domains. So how can this help us? If I give the series to the number and also try to make this additive to false, because the true will just add those numbers. So the most important thing when you always put the consecutive domains, remember that you have to change this additive because the default will add those numbers up. So I'm going to just simply double click and give a toggle, give this to false, and let's just see what happens. I'm going to explain that with a panel. These are the numbers we have, and this is the results of the consecutive domain, and you can see that this is just converting into a domain: 0 to 12.5, 12.5 to 25, and 25 to 337.5. But if I just put this to true, which is the default, you can see that it's going to add up all those numbers, so it's going to be wrong. Another thing we have to give before the consecutive domain, this is degrees, and I talked about this. This is in radians. So what I want to do is to put this a radian before I give this to consecutive domain. So all of the domains are going to be in radians. That's it. And now I just make those radians. Okay, let's just give this to the angle, and here it is. So the problem here is that we have double this curve here, and when I zoom in, you can see that this is 16 numbers for the radius, and we have 15 domain values. So we have just one less, the radius is one more. You can fix that with those series. So we can just decrease the count of this, which goes to the radius, by going to the count and giving this the x minus 1, right? So now you can see that this is giving you 15 for radius and 15 domain names. Okay, and that's going to fix everything. Now we can increase that. You can see that this is going to increase the radius, which is increasing. We can just change the numbers. We need more. We can just give this bigger one. If we want to increase the steps, those parts are going to be bigger, and we can say how many the radius is going to increase. So if I just put that to 0, it's going to be all in one, and when I just give this a slight add to the step, you can see that it's this is actually the distance which is adding up. So it's 4.2, 4.2, 4.2, and up to the end. And this is also the starting radius, which simply just defines the starting arc, which we defined at the start. Okay, so you can control this and produce the arc. And now let's just do something with these arcs. We can extrude them in the Z direction, and again, play with the Z direction, because if I give this a simple number, we will just extrude them up. But I want to make this maybe just increase the height of these sections or just decrease that. So let's just again start with this. But you can use the series again for the Z direction, but now I'm going to give you an advanced tutorial here. We can use the range, and you can also watch the graph mapper tutorial or the range tools, which I will put here to know more about range and graph mappers. But for now, you can see that the domain is from 0 to 1. In that tutorial, I explain, okay, I'm going to put that here. Check this out. It's the graph mapper tutorial. And what we did was to talk about how we can combine the range with graph mapper to bring different numbers. It's something similar to series, but it's going to give you more control over it. Okay, so let's just do that. The domain is from 0 to 1. We're not going to change that. The steps are going to be the same steps of the series. Again, remember we had 15 arcs. Let's just check this out, and you can see that this is 17 output. So I'm going to make that x minus 2, because this is just giving 1 plus that, so it's going to be x minus 2. So I also have 15 numbers in the range. That's fine. Then we are going to give this to the graph mapper. What's happening here is that this domain is from 0 to 1. And if I give this to the Z direction, you can see that this is just increasing this from 0 to 1, which is not really can be seen here because it's just a little from 0 to 1. But let me just multiply that so you can understand this. If I just put this multiplication, then give it to the Z, you can see that this is starting from a small to a big one. Okay, but we want something more advanced. So I'm going to also add a graph mapper. So watch the graph mapper tutorial, and we're going to change the range from a simple linear distribution to maybe a Bezier distribution. Let's just change that. So we can just increase that exactly as you saw here. You can see that we have made a graph mapper. So let's just do this. And then because it's from 0 to 1, we're going to remap this. Okay, we have talked about remap. You can always, if you just watch our tutorials, you see I use that too often. And you know that the remap numbers is the basic of the Grasshopper, but I have just made this remap plus tool really easy. You can always go to this address. I'm going to give you this address so you can always go to that and download this. Okay, this is the basically if you want to just download it fast, but I'm going to also put that in the website. So it's parametric3d.com/en/remap. Okay, just download this and put it in the Grasshopper canvas, and it will just be added here. So it's just going to remap all from 0 to 1 to maybe we need a new number. So I'm going to give this from the minimum and the maximum. That's the important thing. It's going to scale your number from 0 to 1 to this two numbers, and then we can just simply control the minimum and the maximum, or simply just right click and reverse to make that start from big to small. And now we can change this This is going to be beautiful. If I increase the number of this and go to maybe assign graph mapper, you can see that we can also make this start from small, come big, then again go to small, and up here you can see it's going to be big, small, and it's going to give you a sine wave, as you can see here, right? You can also combine those graph mappers. If I can just give this a Bezier distribution, then combine this with another graph mapper, you can also combine multiple graph mappers here. So let's just go for conic. Maybe we want to just produce a conic. So remember, you can always give multiple graph mappers, and I just explained that in the graph mapper tutorial. So here we go. We can simply just decrease the number of those panels, increase the step, decrease the step. Okay, increase this one, decrease that, and then just control this height. Or simply just take that reverse off, and we're good to go. And we can control that with this curve simply by changing that. So this is the way you can do this, and you will just have this extrusion. For those who want to know how to connect this two edges together, because I guess that's going to be more complicated, but I have just put this in the example definition, so you can also check this part to understand why we just connect those sections. We have to use the shift list and those things, but I don't want to make this more complicated. Then you can understand the arc thing, because this will just help you to produce an arc, which is increasing the radius, the angle, and the height. So this was the tutorial of how to use the arc in Grasshopper. Thank you for watching, and subscribe to our channel. And you can also watch something that is related to this video, that corner, and see you next time.